Hey guys, welcome back to Savage Lao channel. This is Lao. We are going to do a review on Creality K1 today. I bought this printer back to early October from my local store. With around $400, I don't technically need another printer to piss my wife off at this point. But how can you reject such a great deal? Hey. Creality released K1 back to April 9, 2023, respond to its competitor Bamboula P1P. The original MSRP for K1 is $599, compared to $699 P1P. There are tons of people at 3D printing community who are curious how good or how bad it is, including myself. We are going to have an in-depth comparison video for K1 with Bamboula P1S. Back to the K1. I was excited to get this new generation high-speed Core XY 3D printer from Creality. I have done a lot of my research online across different platforms to figure out the features and the customer feedback since this April. The speed competition started this year after all the brands released their high-speed machine, and K1 seems like a solid machine on paper. According to Creality, K1 is able to reach 600 mm per second and 20,000 mm per second square accelerations. K1 is a boxy printer with a die-cast frame part to improve overall frame rigidity for high-speed printing. The motion system is finally a core XY structure with a linear rollable X and Y axis. There are 3 lead screws and 1 motor for Z axis. It is synchronized by a belt under this cover. It is not able to move ZX individually. The enclosure combines a few different materials for cost saving. 2 side panels and top cover are made out of clear PC material. The block panel is injection molding part with a block polymer. The front door is made out of glass. It actually looks really nice at night. When you have all the lights turned off, that's how it looks like. This new direct dry extruder only weighs 190 grams. It is also equipped with a ceramic heater and full metal hot end, with a titanium alloy heat break that can reach 300 Celsius and 32 cubic millimeter per second flow volume. If you are new to this hobby, 32 is a decent amount of flow. All the connectors from the extruder board are combined to one CAN bus and protected by the cable chain. Interesting fact, for the past few months, Creality have updated extruder and hot end to 2nd generation. Some people say that there is even 3rd generation out there. The update is to fix the problem on their initial release patch. The mixed bag review on K1 among the community start from the first launch. People love it and enjoying it, or hate it, returning it. There are major issues related to the extruder and the hot end. They have mentioned that a new patch will ship with an upgraded part, but if you are getting it from third party, like me, you may receive an inventory machine which may come with the original extruder and hot end. It happened to me and caused some issues. We are going to talk about more in the printing segment. Creality released the K1 Power Boost Kit in July and gave a coupon for K1 owners $100 off. So by paying $3, you can get 2nd generation extruder, 2nd generation hot end, AI camera, and 1 kg of hyperfilament. It was sweet, but the event ends on December 21st. Back to the printer itself. K1 has 200mm square build plate with a 250mm height capacity. K1 comes with build plate A, which is a smooth PEI build plate. It sticks filament really well during my test, but it is also leave ugly stains easily. If your hand's sweating a lot like me, your fingerprint will left on the build plate every time you touch it. It is also hard to keep clean on the surface. If it bothers you, they have a power code PEI build plate. It called Plate B, but costs around $30 from the official side. You could probably get a generic one from AliExpress for half of that cost. The heat bed is also reach maximum temperature around 100 Celsius degrees. With that fully enclosure printer, it should be a good machine for high temperature filament like ABS. K1 does not have an active heat chamber, but it retains the radiation heat from the heat bed and nozzle. The internal air will be able to reach around 40 degrees plus. It is worth to mention that K1 has auto calibration process. It runs automatic bed leveling by using a strain gauge on the four corner of the build plate. You can say goodbye to the manual bed leveling. It works well on my test. I have absolutely no issue with the first layer. Resonation compensate, or input shaping if you like to call it, is automatically done during the initial self-test. So you will very much get spoiled if this is your first printer. There is also a built-in case fan to do air exchange when you are printing PLA to prevent the clog caused by the heat creep. However, the case fan doesn't have an active carbon filter, so you should keep your room ventilation while printing the smelly filament like ABS or carbon fiber. There is also a giant-sized auxiliary fan to cool your part down, attached on the right side of the printer. It provides good amount of part cooling, but it is very loud, like very loud. Look down, K1 comes with one very nice 4.3-inch touchscreen. The firmware is Clipper based. All the features layout, it's very straightforward. Touchscreen has a very good resolution. The response speed is very quick. It doesn't look like a generic Walmart brand kid's toy anymore. If you cannot use the internet to send a print file, the USB drive and this touchscreen will give you a good user experience. The hosting board for Clipper comes with a dual-core 1.2 GHz CPU and TMC 2209 stepper motor driver. There is also 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi feature on this mainboard, just like any other Clipper pad or Pi. Creality actually released their open source code around September. They also upload a guide to gain the root access for those early patch that has older version of the firmware. The new patch K1 should come with a firmware that is already open sourced, so you can use the mainstay. Also, you can get rid of Creality Print Slicer. Speaking of Creality Print Slicer, I think their intention was to have people use their own ecosystem. So Creality Print Slicer with K1 should give you better user experience. You don't need to calibrate, changing the slicer setting, and finding the best configuration for your printer. From my own experience of Creality Print Slicer, they're trying to bring you those good using experience, especially for beginners, but there are some of the attention to detail missing there. Throughout the whole time, I feel like it is either something wrong with the slicer, or it is something wrong with me. I just couldn't get used to it. Besides those features we have mentioned above, K1 also have some fancy features to fit their Fleischer proposition. Features like AI camera and AI LiDAR that could detect your print fail, but those two are optional, means you need to pay out of your pocket for the part. More practical features like input shaping, filament runout sensor, power loss recovery, and very nice LED light on the frame to help you check out your first layer. The overall footprint for this printer is not big. The space is very well utilized. If you're wondering, K1 electricity consumption at idle, heating, and printing. The noise level at 6 feet away. At a closer distance. When you put a lid on and shut the door off. That's after you stay 6 feet away. There is so much information to cover, but I think you got the most of the meat and potato at this point. Let's get this bad boy started up and go ahead to the printing assignment. The entire setup process is very easy. There is no assembly needed. You will only need to remove a few bolts and power the machine up for the initial self-calibration. The entire process may take you around 30 minutes to an hour. As usual, we will have one setup tutorial video coming soon that covers a lot of tips and common issues that I found throughout my test and information that I collect across different platforms. As I mentioned earlier, Creality intended to expand their ecosystem, so they made Creality Print mobile app and Creality Print Slicer. The Creality Print is not as good as other open source slicer. My first few test print is actually slide from the Creality Print Slicer, which the intentional was I want to experience it, but also my framework is the original one, so I'm stuck with the connecting to Creality Print only before I gain the root access. But anyhow, if you are getting a new patch, I will highly recommend you just go for other slicer. I'm pretty sure they will be working on improving it over time, but I don't know when will you seeing this video, but at least on mid-November 2023, the Creality slicer is not good. With that being said, let's head to the printing assignment. I will be starting with the Creality Print Slicer first. I keep most of the setting default, besides some temperature change. The first thing I notice is that the layout is a whole lot different from other slicer. I will probably get used to the layout over time, but the whole control pane, rotate feature on the mouse, it's really weird to me. Let's get started with the first layer test. K1 will do some basic calibration before every print. It will be around 4 minute prepare time before print start. The fully bed leveling and prepare time will be around 8 minutes. For all the test print time present on the screen, I'll add 4 minute prepare time with the printing time, since it's actually the machine hour you're spending on each print. Test 1. First layer. The first trial failed due to a random reason on the extruder. My extruder is first generation extruder, but after I clean a build plate and rerun the same file, it actually finished the print this time. The first layer looks good on build plate. But when I remove it from the build plate, I quickly noticed that the first layer is way too thin. So I went back to the slicer and increased the first layer thickness from 0.2mm to 0.25mm. I also increased the first layer printing speed to 100mm per second. This time, I got an almost perfect first layer print across the entire build plate. Even pointing the first layer print to the light source, it still looks really good. I think the auto bed leveling feature on K1 works great. I continue to run the benchy from the SD card. It says 17 minutes, but the calibration before print takes around 8 minutes, so a total of 25 minutes. You can see this benchy turned out really good for 17-minute actual printing time. I noticed that the color of sample filament is hard to capture on my camera, so I rerun the benchy with the blue PLA again, so you guys could see the outcome better. The layer looks almost faultless, besides a little ghosting around the circle area. Overhang looks perfectly clean. Small parameter looks good too. I am amazed by the quality of this fast-speed printing benchy. Compared to the benchy came out with the SD card on the Bamboo Lab P1S. I'll leave you to judge. They are actually come from the same roll of a PLA filament. I want to continue slicing my own benchy from the Creality Print Slicer. The slicer setting is most kept unchanged from the Creality Print. I purposely to use orange PLA filament that come with my Bamboo Lab P1S. Again, we got one very decent benchy. There are only two minor issues, like this cooling line, and this ghosting that you could barely see. You have to really turning it under strong light source. I don't know why I'm picky about this one. Compared to the default slicer profile and printing on the P1S, they are the same filament. They look all decent to me. What do you think? I have some remaining Bambula PLA come with my P1S, so I just go ahead and print the one calibration cube. Let's directly compare the one that I got from P1S. Again, make your own judgment. I think P1S one is a little better this time. Let's check the dimension. X-axis is undersize, Y-axis is good, Z-axis is oversize. I suspect it might be something wrong with related to its slicer setting, but let's leave it for now. I designed a riser for K1 since the cable chains keep slamming on the top cover. It looks okay overall, but when you rotate to overhang side, there are major overhang issue and bad finish on the small parameter area. The other one looks slightly better. Overhang orientation to the auxiliary fan side have significantly better quality on both small parameter and overhang. I also print one from P1S with exactly same filament. The one from P1S is significantly better. Before we run the next test print, I want to mention that after I encounter a shooting issue from my test print, I went to the online customer support from Creality official site and notified them the K1 that I bought comes with a first generation hot end and Extruder, and it gives me problem. Customer support connect me with a tech support online chat. They asked me to follow a few troubleshooting steps, like if I select the right filament on the slicer, or do I put a filament into the printer. Yeah, like very basic troubleshooting steps. And they decided to send me a second generation extruder to fix my problem. Well, they didn't mention about the hot end, but I have not encountered any issues with the original hot end yet. Even many people said that it's problematic too, but I have no complaint. Well, at least no complaint so far. It takes a few hours to wait for them to reply and conversation back and forth, but I have to give them credit for this. It takes me around 4 or 5 days to receive a part from the mailbox. Let's check out what is the difference between those two extruders. You'll first notice that the second generation extruder throttle is a lot higher than the original one. It is also not longer requires use a blue clip to hold a PTFE tube in place. You can see this little handle on top has changed from smooth chrome finish to a matte finishing. You can use this white throttle and this matte handle to confirm if your extruder is a second generation one. The biggest change from the second gen is that the distance between two filament extrusion gears is closer on lock position. I will go ahead and install this new one on my K1 and run the remaining tests with this second gen extruder. I continue to run a vice mode with a silk filament. It looks very good overall. This filament will change color at a different angle. Let's take a closer look at it. You can see all the layers join well together. Next, let's move to a PETG filament. I first noticed that there is a lot of debris on the surface. Rotate to the backside. All the small parameter area looks bad. Look above. There is a more debris issue. I won't say it is horrible print, but it doesn't look good to me. Is it because of the slicer setting or slicer? Maybe. This question rises on my head. I also getting enough with the weird operation with the Creality print slicer. So I download the Orca slicer and use a default configuration and setting to slice another Kali dragon. Well, you can see this print significantly better than the last one. Besides very little string on top, this is an almost perfect print. Compared to the last one from Creality Slicer, you can see how big a difference it is. Let's compare this one to the Bambula P1S. They all print with the exactly same filament. I guess sometimes the slicer might have a major impact to the printing quality. Now this model consists a lot of small parameters, detail finishing, and overhand. We will see how consistent of the print quality with the K1 from this print. You'll first notice there is a lot of stringing, but it is not very bad for PETG filament. All the joints moves fine. The layer finish looks good. Well, here is some bad layers over here. Continue looking down. There is a little debris. Another layer adhesion issue. Most of the overhand joints look pretty good. I would say it is a good outcome overall, despite those few fault areas. Next, I want to continue to test with the TPU filament. However, I'm having issue with the filament clog on the nozzle. No matter how I try, the TPU filament just won't come out from the nozzle. I took out Extruder and found this issue. You can see the remaining filament from last print is clogged at this area. I used the retract and Extruder feature on the screen to do a filament swap, but it just left some filament over here somehow. I did manage to get it out later. Continue testing on TPU, but very soon I found there is an under extrusion issue, but I just leave it to finish. This model has a crazy amount of retractions. For flexible filament like TPU, this is a stress test. K1 does not clog during print, that's good, but the amount of stringing and finishing is not good. Compared to the same filament on P1S, you can tell the difference. I continue to run another TPU filament. It has a major under extrusion issue again. I don't know if it is something that I missed on the slicer setting. I will continue to do my research and see if I can find any solutions. I'll update what I found on a later setup video for you guys. For now, let's move on to next filament. K1 comes with a full enclosure. It should be great for printing high temperature filament like ABS. I have to say, this smooth PEI sheet sticks filament really well. Let me remove the brim first. You can see there are some overhang issues on the wing joint area. Other than that, all the layer finish and small parameter all looks really good. Let's continue printing with ABS. This print has a tree support and a very tall Z height, so we can find out if the K1DX setup is stable enough. The overall finish looks good. But over this area, the layer finish looks better. The longer part looks very good. There's no Z wobble issue that I can see. The two part also fits smoothly. And the retracting function works too. I think there should be enough test print at this point. Let's head to the final thought. Final thought of Creality K1 SPEEDY. I was planning to spend at least another month to test it out. There are so many things that I want to test and more information that I want to cover. I want to put more face-to-face comparison with the Bamboula machine next to it. But we are close to the holiday season. Black Friday sale already started everywhere now. There is a huge discount for this printer. If you don't have any micro center nearby, you can try to place match with a Best Buy. I think it would be great to have a video out, and maybe you will know more about it before you're buying it. It could be a good reference for you. But anyhow, back to the K1. I would say, for the amount of money that I pay for, it delivers a very good value and performance. The machine itself is not perfect. It is not plug and play for most. To be totally honest with you, the user experience is not as good as Bamboula printers. But for this amount of money, you'll get very solid hardware offer. The feature and potential capability of this printer are decent for the money. Especially after they push to fully open source, it makes it way more customizable. If you like to upgrade your printer, there you go. Let's continue to talk about pro and con for K1, starting with the pro first. First, it is easy to set up. The entire setup process is the best one compared to their own Creality product, and probably one of the best around $400 price point. There is no assembly needed, no manual bed leveling needed, and very little work you need to perform before you get in first print. The touchscreen is nice and easy to use. The overall aesthetic and look is good from my personal perspective. Second, the performance. The hardware equipment for this printer is very good. It gives a good potential for high-speed printing. It could deliver very good print right out of the box, with amazingly fast printing speed. It will work for most of filament faultlessly, besides a little bit tricky with the TPU. If you can get slicer setting right, you will get a very consistent good result. The enclosure makes ABS and some other high-temperature filament printing easily. Third, it is open source now. It means you're able to convert the fully capability clipper branch and modify it according to your preference. Also, there are already many hardware mods out there make this printer even better. Number 4. Customer base. Whatever you like this printer or not, it is a volume seller. That means there are a big number of owner group out there to provide good helps and mod. Because of big customer base, the part availability gonna be very good. Creality themselves doing well with their official part supply. Also, there are many third-party parts that you can get for a lot cheaper price. Shipping normally takes less days and relatively fast, at least that's in the US. For someone plans to have a long-term ownership, you won't need to consider the part availability in a later day. Number 5. The money. I would say if the sale price is still $599, I'll probably just suggest you to pay a bit more and go for P1P or P1S. But with a sub $400 price, it is reasonable for me to suck it up and learn how to live with the imperfections. Especially now I see many sales go under $400. That's just awesome, man. As many things that I have already complained about, there are some drawbacks on this printer. Number 1. The printer seems like a bit rushed out to the market due to the pressure from a competitor. You can tell their engineers are trying to do as much as the R&D part within a limited time frame. There's somehow attention to the detail to focus on the user experience, but it is not quite sorted out as good as Bambula printers. There is a weirdness on software. The original version of the firmware sometimes throw out error codes randomly, and it will just create printing. The Creality print slicer is not as good as to use. The hardware design, the problematic first generation extruder and hot end. The second generation extruder is better, but still a bit weird doing a filament swap on a daily user basis. There are also some quality control issues, but they have been updated their firmware. Customer support sending out newer generation extruder and hot end to fix those first generation ones that are already in the market. Is a deal breaker? It really depends your mindset. If you are a tweaker and willing to fix some minor issue by yourself, you could get decent printing quality and very decent printing speed from this printer. But if you are someone looking for fault-free or tweaking-free printer and best user experience, this may not be good for you. Number 2, noise. Yes, if you are watching my review video before, you know that I am a bit sensitive to the noise. The K1 is noisy during high-speed printing, especially when you have the auxiliary fan on. I don't know the RPM of the cooling fan, but it could produce great amount of whistling noise. The motion system also makes a lot of noise, but it does not penetrate through your drywall as much as a Bambula printer does. It is actually very quiet when you have all the fans turned to lower speed and printing some small parameter part. Number 3. The extruder design is a bit tricky to use. If you use extrude and retract feature from the screen to do the filament change, sometimes it leaves the filament in the nozzle, and if you continue to print with a flexible filament, it gets jammed every single time. The melt filament you're putting out from the nozzle will get somehow stuck on the extruder gear sometimes. If you have the original hot end, it sometimes throw out error code to you during the initial heating, but they have fixed those in the newer hot end. Number 4. Creality print slicer is not good. It is a bit hard to use for me, and the default setting is not really well dialed in. You can see the printing quality difference from the printing assignment. It also crashed almost every single time when I tried to slice some complex model with a lot of support. But you can avoid to using it. Orca slicer is a whole lot better at performance and the user experience. Number 5. The enclosure works well for the printing high temperature filament. But if you don't get sealing right on the slicer, it will get clogged sometimes due to the heat creep. The unlock handle on the extruder is very hot when you're trying to pull the filament out. You should also leave the top and door open for the printing PLA. Now, you might see so many people complaining about this printer. I don't want you to get overwhelming. There are a lot more people who are happy with their K1. They are just busy with their print after print. You just don't normally see posts like this. Hey, this is my number 35 print or number 85 print. It turned out great. You know, success print doesn't raise out that much of attention. I can see Creality are putting a lot of work into this printer, even after it released. For the past few months, they have been upgrading their extruder, hot end, firmware, and sending out parts, trying to fix those issues that they made during the initial launch. Potential turn over some of the reputation from customers. At least, it tells me that it is not a disposable product from them. There is a lot of attention to detail, but lack of refinement at the same time. The hardware still some design issue. The software is not quite dialed in yet. But I'll still consider it is an amazing good deal if you can get it around sub $400. If you don't mind to do some learning and tricking by yourself. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. There is no bad printer, man, as long as the price is right. Hey babe, I need to buy the printer to show people I'm a professional tweaker. Yeah, it's not that expensive. They have a 60 months payment plan with a 0 ARP. Please. I promise this is the last one.